control the vertigo.
Welcome to Anthologic, the TV anthology podcast. I am your host, Mark. Anthologic is a podcast dedicated to exploring the good, the bad, and the odd of horror, science fiction, and the best of mystery suspense anthology shows and series on TV. Join me as we slip through the cracks of reality to approach the extremes of experience, where we can peruse the stories and art of a sinister fairground of strange and wonderful rides. And now we go on to the show that is the focus of this particular episode. Welcome to this episode of Anthology. We host Mark. Today we are covering an episode of The Night Gallery. This is episode 20 of season 2. First aired on February the 16th, 1972 in the US. And it involves two stories. There's two stories on this particular segment. And there's some interesting info about these stories. The first story is called I'll Never Leave You Ever, directed by Daniel Haller, but written by Jack Laird. Now, Jack Laird usually provides short vignette kind of episodes with a comedy bent. Some of them are total failures. In fact, most of them are total failures, but there's the odd gem. But this one is his only attempt, I believe, in the entire series to actually have just a straight-up horror story, a fairly long story. Now, it's also, should note, it's based on a short story of the same title by Renee Morris, and apparently quite large snippets of the dialogue and so on are lifted straight from that short story, so we have to also attribute some of the skills to the original author of what was presented on screen. It's set in, I don't know, possibly 19th century Ireland. They're Irish with some terrible accents, it has to be said. And it involves a woman who is having an affair with a guy who played by John Saxon. The woman's played by Lois Nettleton. And they meet in the barn, basically, and then it kind of emerges the husband's dying and she can't stand being near him anymore. So you just don't know, did this affair start when the husband started dying, or was it going on before and then he started dying? The husband's played by Royal Dano, who gives a good performance as a basically almost a living corpse. He looks really poorly in this. The makeup's quite good. Now, aside from the accents, which are bad, as I mentioned, actually pretty good melodrama. There's all this, we just have to wait for him. But when she has to return to him after being with her lover in the barn, he's kind of, I just depend on it. He is only just about staying alive because of her energy, it feels like. And he insists on kissing her on the lips. And he's dying, and it's kind of, she feels disgusted by it. In fact, she goes out at one point and washes her face, and is really, really does not like what's going on here. And she's kind of getting desperate. And she turns to a local wise lady of some sort who's massively overacted, but it's kind of fun. This is a witchy type who says, here's what we do. Basically, she makes her the equivalent of a fetish doll, a voodoo doll of her husband, this wooden doll that looks a bit like her husband, not very, but a bit. And this doll is meant to be her way of killing her husband. Now, when we she goes back to the house, she kind of looks at the doll and is kind of disgusted and puts it in a bag. But as soon as she puts it in a bag, her husband sort of says, I can't see anymore, I can't see, everything's black. And she realises it's the doll. And she's not happy about what she has to do, so she throws the doll in the fire. And then her husband starts screaming. And she realises the doll kind of jumps out of the fire at one point. but she realises that this is undried wood. This is what she calls unseasoned wood, i.e. it's got a lot of water in, so it's not going to burn very well. So she doesn't know what to do with it, but her husband's screaming and screaming. Anyway, she runs out and throws it down a quarry or a cliff, and then goes back, and her husband's still there. But then her lover turns up and says, "What did you do?" And she explains, "But why couldn't you just wait?" He's what's it. He was dying anyway. And he says, "We got to go back and get it." And there's some intimations earlier on. The husband saying, "I'll never leave you ever," i.e. the title. And they decide they have to go back out and look for it. Basically, she falls down into the quarry with him. And as she falls, you kind of see his arms outstretched and him kind of burnt up, waiting to embrace her. So she's falling down with him. It's the international. Yeah, this actually is, I probably say, is better than I've made it sound. It's a pretty good little horror melodrama. Jack Laird did a good job here, but like I say, apparently he lifted it mostly from the original story. Also, what kind of brought the production down is apparently someone actually died on set. One of the hands had a heart attack. John Saxon, who had done a previous role in a soap opera as a doctor, had actually done some training, medical training as part for sort of working for the role, and knew enough to massage someone's chest when they were having trouble breathing. So he kind of tried to assist, but the man did die, and in fact the man's wife did thank John Saxon later on for trying to help. But that kind of thing brings the production down. And apparently they didn't stop shooting. They kind of covered him over and moved him to one side and carried on shooting because budgets, right? But yeah, that kind of brings it down. But yeah, nice, effective segment. Really quite like this one. It was good. The second segment was called There Aren't Any More McBains. This one was directed by John Newland and written by Alvin Sapinsley. Various actors in it, a few famous faces. Joel Grey is the lead. Now, this is just before he was in the movie of Cabaret as the MC. Brilliant turn. But he had already received a Tony for his stage performance as the MC, so he was kind of a name. And essentially, he's a student obsessed with his ancestor, who was a wizard, apparently, and could summon up and cause the death of people at distance, and he was kind of obsessed with it. But there were some missing pages, 10 pages missing from his ancestor's book that he wanted to find out. Meanwhile, his uncle is really angry with him because he wants him to get a job, and he says, basically, if you don't get a job in 6 months, I will cut off your inheritance. He's also got a couple of friends towing along, and they kind of say, well, just get a job. And he goes, no, I don't want a job. I'm not going to sell graph paper to spotty students. It's that kind of huffy. And he continues looking. Now, this was based on a short story by Stephen Hall. And the original story is called By One, By Two, and By Three. It's good to see Joel Grey in an early role. He's quite effective. I really like him as the MC in Cabaret. I quite like him as the elderly mentor in Remo as well. He plays. I know it's yellow face, but he does a really good turn in that as well. He manages to summon up something to kill his uncle, and his uncle gets killed on the way out after going there to sort of say, I'm cutting you off, you'll be out of the will tomorrow. But he appears to be attacked by some sort of beast. I think it's described as something wild. So he has summoned up something. But it turns out he can't control it. He knows it's out there and he can't control it. So this has got a touch of the casting of the runes, Night of the Demon about it. He summoned up something from some other dimension, and he cannot control it, and he's frightened of it. And in fact, his friends are kind of subject to it too. Now, also interestingly, there's an early turn here by Mark Hamill. Mark Hamill is not one of the main characters. He is a messenger boy, essentially, and has a line or two. It's kind of interesting to see a very young Mark Hamill, because this is 1972. It was, 5 years before Star Wars. But he's, you can see he's got some charisma. He's quite a good little moment with him. And essentially the creature comes back to get the guy, even though he's trying to direct it. He cannot control it. Creature's a little disappointing. No, not much, a little. because it sounds like a wild beast. You think it's going to be a leopard or a panther or something like that. There's certainly some scenes that are reminiscent of cat people in here. But when it turns up, it's actually a weird blue-faced witch with like these claw-like hands. But there are some moments with that's effective. Like at some point, you don't see it features at all. You just see a pair of red eyes and large hands pulling apart sort of a grate to get in somewhere. So that's kind of cool. Maybe even the X-Files for some reason, that part. Maybe Tombs from the X-Files. But essentially, you know, he gets his comeuppance for summoning up something that he cannot control. So there's a touch of Lovecraft. There's a touch of Poe. And I quite like this story. Well directed, I have to say. It looked good. But the director never did work on the Night Gallery because he went over budget a little trying to get some of the final shots. And apparently Jack Laird was a bit of a nightmare. If any director went over budget, he just never used them again. So even if they did a great job, he would just not use them again because of budgets, right? So that's how Jack Laird was. Yeah, interesting one. Like I say, season 2, episode 20. And a good pair of episodes, quite effective pair of episodes. Quite enjoyed this. So I think we'll finish there. But before I go, may I ask, is anybody out there?
I'm not.
We now return control of your television set to you until next week at this same time, when the control voice will take you to